a novel in 9 letters. Chapter 1. From Fyodor Ivanich to Ivan Petrovich. Dear Sir and most esteemed friend, Ivan Petrovich, for the past 2 days I have been diligently pursuing you, my dear friend, as I urgently need to discuss a matter of great importance with you. Yet, despite all my efforts, I have not been able to find you anywhere. Yesterday, while we were visiting at Semyon Alexeyev's home, my wife, with her characteristic wit, made a humorous remark about you. She joked that you and Tatiana Petrovna are like 2 birds, always on the wing. Imagine you've been married less than 3 months, and already your domestic hearth seems neglected. We all laughed heartily, of course, out of genuine fondness for you, but in all seriousness, my dear friend, you've put me through quite the ordeal. Semyon Alexeyevich suggested that you might be attending the ball at the Social Unions Club. Leaving my wife with Semyon Alexeyevich's good lady, I hurried off to the club in search of you. Picture my predicament, me at the ball alone without my wife. The ever-cheeky Ivan Andreyich spotted me in the porter's lodge and immediately jumped to conclusions. He assumed, quite mistakenly, that I have some hidden passion for dances. Grabbing my arm, he tried to drag me to a dancing class, claiming the social union was too crowded for anyone with a fiery spirit. And he was suffering from the overwhelming scent of patchouli and mignonette. Alas, I found neither you nor Tatiana Petrovna at the club. Ivan Andreyich, with his usual certainty, declared that you must have gone to the Alexandrinsky Theater to see Woe from Wit. Off I dashed to the theater, but once again, you were nowhere to be seen. This morning, I hoped to find you at Chistoganov's residence. But there was no sign of you there either. Chistoganov suggested the Perepolkin's place, but that search too proved fruitless. In short, my dear friend, I am completely worn out from chasing you across the city. You can see for yourself the trouble I've gone through. Left with no other option, I am now writing to you directly. My business is of such a nature that it requires a face-to-face discussion. It's vital and cannot be delayed. I beg you, therefore, to visit us this evening with Tatiana Petrovna. Join us for tea and a chat. Mayana Mihailovna would be delighted to see you both. I assure you your visit would mean the world to me, and I would remain forever grateful. Since I have already taken up my pen, allow me to air a small grievance. My dear friend, you have played a seemingly innocent trick on me, though I must say it has caused me considerable inconvenience. You are quite the rascal, a man utterly without conscience. Do you recall introducing your acquaintance, Yevgeny Nikolaevich, into my home about a month ago? You vouched for him with your sacred recommendation, and I, trusting in your word, welcomed him warmly. At first, I was pleased to host such a pleasant and amiable young man. But what a situation it has turned into. I don't have the time or the nerve to explain it all in writing, but suffice it to say, my dear friend, that his frequent visits have become too much for me to bear. Could you, in your tactful way, subtly suggest to Yevgeny Nikolaevich that there are many other homes in this great city where he might find equal hospitality? It's not that he's been rude or unpleasant. Far from it. But, as Semyonovich might say, it's simply too much. You introduced him, so I believe it falls to you to handle this matter delicately. I would do it myself, but you know me, I just can't bring myself to address such things directly. We can discuss this further when we meet tonight. Finally, on a more somber note, my little boy has been unwell for a week now. His teething pains grow worse by the day, and my poor wife is utterly consumed with caring for him. She is exhausted and deeply worried. Your visit would be a great comfort to us both, my dear friend. Until then, I remain, as ever, your devoted friend, Pyotr Ivanich. Chapter 2. From Ivan Petrovich to Pyotr Ivanich. Dear Sir, Pyotr Ivanich, I received your letter yesterday and must admit it left me thoroughly puzzled. You claim to have searched high and low for me, yet the truth is I was simply at home the entire time. Until 10 o'clock, I was waiting for Ivan Ivanich Tolokonov, expecting him to arrive at any moment. Upon reading your letter, I wasted no time. I immediately set out with my wife, hiring a cab at my own expense, and reached your house by about 6:30 in the evening. To my disappointment, you were not at home, but your wife kindly received us. Hoping to catch you later, I waited until 10:30. But as there was no sign of you, I had no choice but to leave. Once again, I went to the expense of hiring a cab to see my wife safely home. Afterwards, I decided to head to the Perepalkin's residence, thinking perhaps I might find you there. But alas, my calculations were once again wrong, and you were not there either. That night, I hardly slept. I was uneasy, constantly wondering about your whereabouts. Determined to find you, I visited your house 3 times the next morning, at 9, 10, and 11 o'clock, each time hiring a cab, each time returning empty-handed. And yet, after all this, you write to me as though nothing had happened. Your letter has left me amazed and even more perplexed. You mention Yevgeny Nikolaevich and request me to whisper a hint to him. Yet you don't explain what it is I should hint at or why. I commend your discretion. But let me remind you that not all letters fall into careless hands, and I do not give documents of importance to my wife for curl papers. What exactly was your intention in writing to me about this matter, without providing any clarity? To be honest, I am baffled about what role you expect me to play in this. Why should I involve myself in such an ambiguous affair? If Yevgeny Nikolaevich's visits are bothersome, simply make yourself unavailable to him. As for me, I see no reason to meddle. That said, it seems this situation calls for a brief but decisive conversation between us, as time is slipping away and there are matters that cannot wait. Let me remind you that a journey for nothing is not without cost, financial or otherwise. And now my wife is pressing me for a velvet mantle, insisting it must be of the latest fashion. These domestic concerns only add to my exasperation. Regarding Yevgeny Nikolaevich, I made inquiries during my visit to Pavel Semyonovich Perepalkin's yesterday. From what I learned, Nikolaevich owns 500 serfs in the province of Yaroslav and stands to inherit an additional estate of 300 serfs near Moscow from his grandmother. However, I cannot provide any details about his financial liquidity. You would likely know more on that front. Once and for all, I urge you to appoint a time and place where we can meet and resolve these issues. Furthermore, you mentioned in your letter that Ivan Andreevich told you I was at the Alexandrinsky Theater with my wife. I must state plainly that he is lying. This is yet another example of how unreliable his word can be, as only 2 days ago he swindled his own grandmother out of 800 rubles. I remain, as ever, yours sincerely, Ivan Petrovich P.S. My wife is expecting a child soon, and has been feeling rather nervous and low-spirited lately. For this reason, I avoid taking her to the theater where the sound effects, like firearms and artificial thunderstorms, might unsettle her nerves. Truth be told, I'm not much of a theater enthusiast myself. Chapter 3. My dearest friend, Ivan Petrovich, I am entirely to blame, undeniably at fault, 1,000 times over. Yet I beg you to allow me to explain myself, for my actions have not been without reason. Between 5 and 6 yesterday, as we were speaking of you with the deepest affection, a sudden and urgent message arrived from Uncle Stepan Alexeyevich. A messenger, nearly breathless from his haste, brought the news that my dear aunt was in a dire state. Out of fear of distressing my wife, I kept the true gravity of the situation from her, and used the excuse of pressing business to leave the house. Upon arriving at my aunt's, I was greeted with the heartbreaking sight of her, nearly on her deathbed. She had suffered yet another stroke, the third in just 2 years. Karl Fyodorich, their family physician, offered little hope, stating gravely that she might not survive the night. Imagine, dear friend, the state I found myself in. The household was gripped by grief and anxiety, and none of us could rest. We remained on our feet throughout the night, consumed by worry. As dawn broke, I was so utterly drained, both in body and spirit, that I finally collapsed onto a sofa in exhaustion. Foolishly, I forgot to ask anyone to wake me, and I only stirred at 11:30 in the morning. Thankfully, my aunt's condition showed some slight improvement by then. Relieved but still anxious, I hurried home to my wife. Poor thing, she had been frantic with worry over my prolonged absence. I reassured her as best as I could, embraced our little boy, and managed to grab a quick bite to eat before setting off to see you, eager to explain myself and set things right. To my dismay, you were not at home when I arrived. Instead, I found Yevgeny Nikolaich at your flat. After returning home, I immediately took up my pen to write to you, for I could not bear the thought of leaving this misunderstanding unresolved. My truest friend, please do not let this incident cloud the bond we share. Scold me if you must. I will accept your rebukes without hesitation. Punish me however you see fit. Beat me, castigate me, or even take my guilty head from my shoulders. But do not, I beg you, withdraw your affection from me. From your wife I learned that you plan to be at the Slavyanovs this evening. I will be there without fail, for I cannot wait to see you and put this matter to rest. Let us meet and reconcile, my friend, as I look forward with the greatest anticipation to being in your company once again. I remain ever yours, Fyodor Ivanitch. P.S. We are in utter despair over our little boy's condition. Karl Fyodorovich has prescribed rhubarb, but the poor child moans constantly. Yesterday he didn't seem to recognize anyone, not even his own parents. This morning, however, there was a glimmer of hope. He recognized us and began to softly lisp, "Papa, Mama, Boo." My wife, overcome with emotion, has been in tears all morning. Chapter 4. My esteemed Sir Pyotr Ivanitch, I find myself writing to you from your own room, seated at your bureau, where I have now been waiting for over 2.5 hours. Allow me, without any pretense, to express my candid thoughts about this troubling and frankly unacceptable situation. From the contents of your last letter, I understood quite clearly that you were expected to be at the Slavyanovs, and that you had extended an invitation for me to meet you there. Dutifully I went, and I remained there for no less than 5 hours, yet you never appeared. Now, I ask you plainly, do you truly believe it is fitting to subject a friend to such treatment? Am I to become a mere object of ridicule to those who are present? Forgive my forthrightness, but this incident has deeply offended me. This morning, I resolved to come to you directly, confident that a visit to your residence would yield the explanation that your previous absences have failed to provide. Yet once again, you were not at home. It seems you have chosen to avoid me entirely. Restraint alone prevents me from delivering the full measure of my grievances in this letter, though I must state that your behavior suggests an abandonment of our mutual understanding and agreement. The more I reflect upon recent events, the more convinced I am that your actions are not merely accidental but calculated. It is becoming increasingly clear that you have long harbored some unspoken design against me. My suspicion finds validation in the way you have handled our dealings. Only last week, in a manner that bordered on impropriety, you removed a letter addressed to me, a letter in which you yourself outlined, albeit vaguely and with little coherence, the terms of our agreement regarding certain matters I need not detail here. Your aversion to written records is apparent. You seem intent on erasing any evidence that might hold you accountable, thereby attempting to confuse or even outmaneuver me. I assure you, Pyotr Ivanitch, such tactics will not succeed. I have never been considered a fool, and I refuse to allow you or anyone else to treat me as one. The incident with Yevgeny Nikolaich is yet another instance of your disingenuous behavior. Rather than providing clarity, your correspondence of the 7th of this month has only served to obfuscate matters further. When I sought a direct and honest explanation from you, you responded by setting ambiguous appointments and then failing to appear. Surely you do not think I am oblivious to these maneuvers. Furthermore, you cannot possibly believe I have overlooked the financial aspect of this matter. While you promised to reward my efforts that you are fully aware have been of great service to you, you have instead managed to borrow considerable sums of money from me without issuing any form of receipt or acknowledgement. This occurred as recently as last week. Having secured the funds, you now evade both my company and my inquiries, all while dismissing the assistance I provided concerning Yevgeny Nikolaich. If your plan is to rely on my impending departure for Simbirsk to avoid settling this matter, let me disabuse you of that notion. I am fully prepared to delay my journey by 2 months if necessary to remain in Petersburg and see this through to its proper resolution. Rest assured I am more than capable of countering such tactics. I must now demand that you provide a detailed and satisfactory explanation by the end of today. This explanation must come first in writing and then in a face-to-face meeting. You must clearly restate the key points of our agreement and offer a full account of your position regarding Yevgeny Nikolaich. If you fail to meet these conditions, I will be left with no choice but to pursue actions that, while deeply unpleasant for both of us, will be necessary to resolve this matter. Awaiting your prompt response, I remain, etc. Chapter 5. November 11th. My dear and honored friend, Ivan Petrovich, your letter has truly cut me to the heart. I must confess I am deeply pained that you, my dear and cherished friend, could have acted so hastily and without giving me the benefit of the doubt. How could you, without seeking clarification, wound me with such grievous and unfounded suspicions? I cannot imagine what prompted this. Nevertheless, I feel compelled to respond immediately, if only to correct the misunderstandings that have evidently taken root between us. Allow me to explain why you were unable to find me yesterday. Quite unexpectedly, I was called away to a deathbed, a deeply sorrowful occasion that left no room for delay. My dear aunt, Yefimya Nikolaevna, passed away late last night at 11 o'clock. Her departure has brought great sorrow to our family. By unanimous agreement among the relatives, I was tasked with organizing the necessary arrangements for her funeral. It was a duty I could not refuse, though it left me overwhelmed with responsibilities and entirely without time to write even a brief note to you, let alone to meet you in person. I am grieved beyond words at the misunderstanding that seems to have arisen between us. Your interpretation of my casual and light-hearted remark about Yevgeny Nikolaevich has astonished me. What was said in jest, with no intention of offense, you appear to have taken in a manner that is entirely foreign to my meaning, ascribing to it implications that are deeply hurtful to me. This is not like you, my friend. As for your mention of money, I cannot allow this point to go unanswered. I see now that my reliance on your understanding may have been misplaced, though I continue to trust in your innate sense of fairness. Let me state unequivocally, the 350 rubles I received from you last week were not a loan. The transaction was made under the terms of an agreement we had both reached, a mutually understood arrangement. Were it otherwise, I would, of course, have provided a receipt, as is proper. But as I value our friendship, I am willing to address any concerns you may have. Should you still harbor doubts, I am fully prepared to settle any claims you wish to make, not because they are warranted, but because I value your peace of mind above all else. I must admit, however, that some of the additional accusations in your letter have left me profoundly disappointed. They seem to stem from a misunderstanding, and perhaps from the quickness of temper and stubbornness that you, my friend, are not wholly free from. Yet I know your open and generous nature, and I trust that once your indignation cools, you will see the matter clearly. When that moment comes, I am certain you will be the first to offer your hand in reconciliation, for such is the kind of man I have always known you to be. Although your letter has caused me great distress, I would come to you even today, humbling myself to apologize if it would restore harmony between us. Alas, I am utterly worn out, both in body and spirit. Since yesterday, I have been consumed by an endless rush of obligations, and to add to my troubles, my wife has taken ill. Her condition appears serious, though I remain hopeful. Our little boy, thank God, is showing signs of recovery, but I dare not take that for granted. Even now, I can hardly hold my pen. Urgent matters press on me from every side, and I find myself utterly drained. Yet I could not let another day pass without reaching out to you, my dear friend. Let us not allow this misunderstanding to fester. I ask you to set aside your doubts and remember the bond of trust and affection we have long shared. I remain, with all sincerity, your devoted friend, Pyotr Ivanitch. Chapter 6. November 14th. Dear Sir, Pyotr Ivanitch, I have waited patiently for 3 days, using the time as constructively as possible, all the while reflecting on how politeness and good manners serve as the greatest adornments for any individual. Since my last letter on the 10th of this month, I have refrained from making any verbal or written reminders of my existence. This restraint was not out of indifference, but rather out of respect. I wished to give you uninterrupted time to attend to your Christian duty regarding your late aunt, and I also required the time to consider certain matters and conduct investigations concerning the business that you are fully aware of. Now, however, I feel compelled to address you directly and with full clarity, It is high time that we dispel any ambiguity. When I first read your initial letters, I found myself genuinely perplexed. I believed you might have misunderstood my intentions or perhaps failed to grasp the nature of my concerns. For that reason, I sought to meet you face to face, hoping that direct communication might resolve the matter. I hesitated to write in detail because I doubted my ability to articulate myself clearly on paper. After all, I am not a man of formal education or polished manners, and I avoid the empty affectation of gentility, having learned through bitter experience how deceitful appearances can be. As the saying goes, a snake may lie hidden beneath a bed of flowers. However, it has since become apparent that you understood my meaning perfectly well. Your failure to respond appropriately was not due to any confusion, but rather a calculated decision stemming from treachery. You had already resolved to break your word of honor and betray the friendly relationship that once existed between us. Recent events and your behavior leave no doubt of this. From the beginning of our acquaintance, I was captivated by your charm, your keen intellect, and your apparent mastery of worldly affairs. I believed I had found in you a true friend and ally, someone whose association would bring mutual benefit. Now, however, I see that I was gravely mistaken. Beneath your polished exterior lies a heart filled with venom. You have wielded your intelligence not for good but to ensnare others, to deceive and to manipulate. Worse still, you have employed fine words and flowery expressions not to uplift others but to confuse and bewitch those who place their trust in you. Your treachery is evident in numerous ways. First and foremost, when I wrote to you in plain and unmistakable terms to outline my position and sought clarification about your intentions regarding Yevgeny Nikolaevich, you evaded my inquiries. Instead of addressing my concerns, you deflected, sowing seeds of doubt and suspicion, all while sidestepping the matter entirely. Your subsequent letters, which claimed you were wounded by my accusations, further reveal your duplicity. What else could such behavior signify but a deliberate attempt to confuse and mislead me? Moreover, when every moment was critical, you sent me on a wild goose chase across town, wasting my time and energy while offering no meaningful explanation. Your letters, filled with irrelevant details about your wife's illness and your child's teething troubles, served only to insult me. While I sympathize with your domestic concerns, such matters are entirely out of place when urgent business requires our attention. Your deceit reached new heights when you invoked the sacred context of family bereavement to excuse your absence. You claim to have been called away to your aunt's deathbed at a specific time, yet my inquiries have revealed this to be false. Your aunt's stroke occurred well before the date you cited, and her passing was likewise misrepresented. Such distortions of truth for personal gain are not only shameful but deeply offensive. Beyond these personal affronts, your principal act of betrayal lies in your persistent silence regarding our mutual business interests. You have deliberately avoided addressing the matter of the 350 rubles which you borrowed under the guise of partnership, but without providing any receipt. Your defamatory remarks about Yevgeny Nikolaevich further compound your wrongdoing. You attempted to portray him as ineffectual and unworthy of trust, while exploiting his resources for your gain. In light of these transgressions, I am left with no choice but to demand immediate restitution. You must, without delay, return to me the 350 rubles, as well as any other sums owed to me under our agreement. Should you fail to comply, I will resort to every legal and lawful measure at my disposal to secure what is rightfully mine. Furthermore, I must inform you that I am in possession of certain facts that, if disclosed, could irreparably damage your reputation. I urge you to reflect on your actions and to act honorably. This is not merely a matter of money or business, but one of integrity and trust. Allow me to remain, etc. Chapter 7. November 15th. Dear Ivan Petrovich, when I first read your letter, so peculiar in tone and vulgar in expression, I was seized by an immediate impulse to tear it into shreds. However, I decided to keep it, not for its merit, but as an example of what one might call an oddity or even a curiosity. Despite my initial reaction, I want to express my genuine regret for the misunderstandings and the unpleasant turn our relationship has taken. Such strained interactions bring neither satisfaction nor benefit to either party, and it is deeply unfortunate that things have come to this. To be honest, I did not intend to respond to your letter at all, but circumstances compel me to do so. Therefore, I must inform you that it would be extremely disagreeable for me to have you visit my home again under any pretense. My wife shares this sentiment entirely. Her health is fragile, and as you may know, she is particularly sensitive to certain odors, including, regrettably, the smell of tar, which causes her great discomfort. I trust you will understand that her well-being must take precedence over any social calls, however well-meaning they may be. On a separate note, my wife has asked me to extend her gratitude to your wife for her gracious loan of the book, Don Quixote de la Mancha. She has read it with great enjoyment and sends her heartfelt thanks as she now returns it. It was a kind gesture, and my wife appreciates it deeply. Regarding the galoshes you mentioned in your letter, which you believe you left behind during your last visit, I regret to inform you that they have not yet been located. Our household staff has been instructed to search thoroughly, but as of this moment, they remain missing. If they cannot be found in due course, I will ensure that a new pair is purchased for you as a replacement. I trust this will settle the matter to your satisfaction. While I remain saddened by the recent strain in our interactions, I hope this correspondence will clarify any lingering misunderstandings. It is my sincere wish that you will respect the boundaries I have outlined and allow us both the space to navigate our respective affairs in peace. I have the honor to remain your sincere friend, Pyotr Ivanich. Chapter 8. On the 16th of November, Fyodor Ivanich received 2 letters in the post. Both were addressed to him, and as he opened the first envelope, he noticed immediately the faint fragrance of perfume in the pale pink hue of the paper. It was carefully folded and bore the unmistakable handwriting of his wife. Inside the envelope there was only the note. Nothing more, no explanation, no additional correspondence. The note was addressed to Yevgeny Nikolaevich and dated November the 2nd. With a sinking heart and trembling hands, Pyotr Ivanich began to read. Dear Eugene, yesterday was utterly impossible. My husband was at home the whole evening. Be sure to come tomorrow punctually at 11. At 10:30 my husband is going to Zarsko and not coming back till evening. I was in a rage all night. Thank you for sending me the information and the correspondence. What a lot of paper. Did she really write all that? She has style though. Many thanks, dear. I see that you love me. Don't be angry, but for goodness sake, come tomorrow. A double quote. Pyotr Ivanich stared at the words in stunned silence. The betrayal implied in the note hit him like a thunderclap. His breath caught, and for a moment he could not move, as if rooted to the spot by the enormity of what he had just read. The casual tone, the mention of love, and the precise instructions. It all painted a picture he could scarcely bring himself to confront. The letter slipped from his fingers onto the table, but he could not tear his eyes away from it. Feeling a wave of dread and rage surge within him, he reached for the second envelope. This one felt different, colder somehow, as if it carried no trace of sentiment, only purpose. He tore it open with less care than the first and unfolded the letter inside. The words, stark and direct, were like a slap to the face. Pyotr Ivanich, I should never have set foot again in your house anyway. You need not have troubled to soil paper about it. Next week I am going to Simbirsk. Yevgeny Nikolaevich remains your precious and beloved friend. I wish you luck, and don't trouble about the galoshes. The tone was biting, laced with sarcasm, and it carried the unmistakable signature of Ivan Petrovich's bitterness. The reference to Yevgeny Nikolaevich, casual and dismissive, was like pouring salt on an open wound. The final remark about the galoshes, so flippant and devoid of any real care, struck him as the epitome of disdain. Pyotr Ivanich stood motionless for a long time, the 2 letters now lying side by side on the table. They seemed to glare up at him, the words etched in ink but burning like fire. His mind raced, filled with anger, confusion, and a profound sense of betrayal. What had started as an ordinary day had turned into one that would leave a scar on his heart and pride forever. Chapter 9. On the 17th of November, Ivan Petrovich received 2 letters delivered by post. Both were addressed to him, and as he tore open the first envelope, he felt a peculiar sense of foreboding. The note inside was hastily written, its handwriting familiar, his wife's. It bore a date, August the 4th, and it was addressed to none other than Yevgeny Nikolaich. The envelope contained nothing else, no explanation or additional context, just the note. With a growing sense of unease, Ivan Petrovich unfolded the paper and read its contents. "Goodbye, goodbye, Yevgeny Nikolaich. The Lord reward you for this too. May you be happy, but my lot is bitter, terribly bitter. It is your choice. If it had not been for my aunt, I should not have put such trust in you. Do not laugh at me nor at my aunt. Tomorrow is our wedding. Aunt is relieved that a good man has been found and that he will take me without a dowry. I took a good look at him for the first time today. He seems good-natured. They are hurrying me. Farewell, farewell. My darling, think of me sometimes. I shall never forget you. Farewell. I signed this last like my first letter, do you remember? Tatiana." Ivan Petrovich stared at the letter, his hands trembling slightly as he held the delicate sheet of paper. The raw emotion in the words hit him like a wave. The references to trust, to bitterness, to farewells, all directed at another man, another name. The tone carried the weight of resignation, of a decision made under duress, of a heart left wounded and longing. The closing line struck him the hardest, the mention of the first letter, something he had no knowledge of, a private exchange between his wife and this man. His mind raced with questions, yet no answers presented themselves. Unable to linger on the implications of the first note for long, he reached for the second letter, his apprehension mounting. The tone here was starkly different. It was short, almost curt, devoid of the emotional intensity of the first. It read, "Ivan Petrovich, tomorrow you will receive a new pair of galoshes. It is not my habit to filch from other men's pockets, and I am not fond of picking up all sorts of rubbish in the streets. Yevgeny Nikolaich is going to Simbirsk in a day or two on his grandfather's business, and he has asked me to find a traveling companion for him. Wouldn't you like to take him with you?" The brevity of the letter, paired with its dismissive tone, added fuel to Ivan Petrovich's growing turmoil. The pointed remark about not filching from other men's pockets, and the casual reference to galoshes, felt almost mocking. The suggestion of accompanying Yevgeny Nikolaich on a journey was the final twist, an absurd invitation in light of what the first letter had revealed. Ivan Petrovich sat back, the two letters lying before him on the table. His thoughts were a storm of disbelief, anger, and sorrow. The disparity between the emotional vulnerability of the first note and the dismissive coldness of the second was jarring. The letters seemed to encapsulate a web of deceit, unspoken truths and relationships he barely understood, but was now irreversibly entangled in.